In 2002, news reports from Guangdong province of China would report on a mysterious illness that was sweeping in Foshan City. Initially, Chinese health officials considered this to be a seasonal flu of some sort. In the coming months, between mid-November of 2002 and January 2003, concerns of this new illness would only begin to heighten. As more individuals began to exhibit symptoms of this mysterious illness, health officials would move forward to report these findings of a possible viral outbreak to a Guangdong-based anti-epidemic station. It was from here the Chinese Ministry of Health began to investigate these reports of a mysterious illness, sending out a team of medical experts on January 20th, 2003. On January 27th, reportings of the findings were then hurried away to Beijing. These findings were marked as top secret and could only be read by top health and government officials. The following months would prove disastrous for the Chinese government. With a combination of a slow bureaucratic process and the suppression of news reporting, this mysterious illness began to make its way through Guangdong, infecting more people. Chinese law prohibited that news would not be relayed to the public as per the implementing regulations on the state secrets law regarding the handling of public health. The order demanded that any occurrences of infectious diseases is to be marked as a state secret before they are announced by the Ministry of Health to the public. If this were to be disobeyed, the possibility of being persecuted by the state or even imprisoned was made clear. Individuals who leaked state secrets, with this viral outbreak being classified as a state secret, would be imprisoned. On February 8th of 2003, reports of a deadly flu were being spread through mobile messages from phone to phone in Guangzhou. Despite Chinese government officials knowing that this virus was an outbreak with a genealogy that had been never before seen, news of this virus was still not relayed to the media. However, talk of the sickness was still perpetuated. Using the Wayback Machine shows the amount of ignorance the media was allowed to remain in. One look at the South China Morning Post, a Hong Kong English language newspaper, shows an article titled "Pneumonia Outbreak Leaves at least 6 Dead in Pearl River Delta," and Guangdong moves to critical panic buying, with finally, SARS atypical pneumonia virus toll rises to 165, the first mentioning of this virus. Eventually, on February 11th, 2003, Guangdong health officials held a press conference revealing that there was a new flu-like disease that they had no effective treatment for. The Chinese government shortly thereafter began to relay information about this new disease in a controlled manner, all the while claiming that it was under effective control in the regions affected.
中央和地方卫生部门的艰苦努力，现在发病人数明显减少，治愈人数显著增加，死亡人数有所减少，疫情得到有效控制。台湾同胞是我们的骨肉兄弟，血浓于水，所以台湾当局声称台湾同胞的健康受到漠视，这完全不符合事实。我们希望台湾当局领导人不要再节外生枝，别有用心地散布一些没有根据、不负责任的说法，甚至打着所谓人权的幌子，图谋以非典型肺炎疫情为由，为台湾挤弱只有主权国家才能参加的世界卫生组织造势。由于非典型肺炎不是我国传染病防治法规定的法定的报告传染病，因此需要建立新的疫情报告方法和规范，还要收集疫情、分析疫情，这都需要一定的时间。我们决定从4月1号开始，每天向 WHO 报告疫情。
Thus, the public was duped and travel through the affected regions remained the same as normal. Surely enough, news agencies began to question the government's handling of this outbreak, which promptly resulted in a media blackout until things could no longer be contained. the Communist Party of China relayed little information about the outbreak to the World Health Organization or WHO. However, news agencies were able to find loopholes within the Chinese law on the Prevention and Treatment of Infectious Diseases Act enacted in September 1989. Apparently, atypical pneumonia was not listed in the law as an infectious disease that was supposed to be under the surveillance of the Chinese government. This allowed local government officials to report on the matter. As reports of this pneumonia began to spread, the CCP began to consider the potential impacts of publicizing the matter globally and the possible economic drawbacks that they would endure. Surely enough, this disease would spread beyond its borders into countries like Mongolia, South Korea, Canada, and many other places. This virus was SARS, and after all was said and done, about 8,098 people worldwide became infected with this virus. Of those 8,000, 774 people would die. Most of the world was largely untouched by SARS. However, just because this pandemic was a brief one does not indicate that all was well handled. It wasn't. Today's CCP is just as incompetent as the one in 2002 to 2003, with their complete and total disastrous handling of the SARS-CoV-2, aka COVID-19, aka Wuhan virus, which has now become a global pandemic, reaching millions of people and killing thousands. The same restrictions that were placed on whistleblowers then, which restricted the flow of information on the matter, exist today in the consequence of the Wuhan virus becoming a global pandemic. One of the most famous of these whistleblowers would be Li Wenliang, a Chinese physician who was based in Wuhan. Li, who warned his colleagues in December 2019 about a possible outbreak of a SARS-like illness, later acknowledged as COVID-19, was reprimanded by the CCP to stop spreading rumors, with an official notice from the government as seen here. Unfortunately for Li, he would contract this virus and succumb to it, as he was around people that were infected in his place of work. They say that hindsight is 20/20, and yet the failures of the Chinese government has put the world under the umbrella of a new pandemic, with the World Health Organization in the initial days reporting that this viral outbreak in China was nothing to worry about, even criticizing countries who shut down travel from China. The world was left to continue as if nothing was happening and everything was handled in China. Given how globally connected we are, this notion was a dangerous one, and it has so far proved to be dangerous. Now, in all honesty, I can spend the rest of this video discussing how China's failures to contain this virus has put much of humanity in danger, or I can talk about how the World Health Organization today is in the pocket of the CCP thanks to Tedros Adhanom and his blind peddling of Chinese talking points. But that would make this run on for far too long and would be better suited for another video, if a video at all. Instead, I want to talk about what we should have learned about the SARS pandemic of 2003 and what we should learn from the currently ongoing COVID-19 or Wuhan virus pandemic of 2020. Now, it's hard for me to criticize the global community or even the World Health Organization of 2003 for much of what China is responsible for. In fact, in 2003, then General Director of WHO, Dr. Gro Harlem Brundtland, criticized the Chinese reporting of the SARS virus, saying then, in May of 2003, that much of the vital data on the spread of the virus as well as its death rate was still missing, and that the suppression of news proved to be detrimental. Brundtland said, quote, "It would have been much better if the Chinese government had been more open in the earlier stages," end quote. Now, I would like to talk about a specific notion that exists, that if we continued working on a vaccine and or a treatment for the SARS virus of 2003, the current pandemic we are facing today would not be as much of a problem. One might ask, how could this be? Surely the SARS and COVID-19 viruses are two different things. The answer to this lies within the genealogy of these viruses. Both SARS and COVID-19 have a similar infection process, which account for its similar evolutionary relationship. Had an effective blocker been created for the SARS main protease in the early 2000s, the COVID-19 outbreak today would have been manageable via previously administered vaccines and or medical treatments developed from the research. COVID-19, which is also called SARS-CoV-2, uses the SARS-CoV, another name for the SARS virus of 2003, ACE2 receptor for host cell entry in humans. Once COVID-19 invades a cell, the proteins within the virus help invade nearby cells and also create replicative copies which prompt viral generation and spread. From this 3D model here provided by Professor Luke Goodot of Melbourne University, you can see a chemical compound that is covalently bound to a protein, which would in theory stop the COVID-19 virus protein from entering human cells. This, if it were a drug of some sort, would prevent the virus from replicating. So, why wasn't this drug created? Well, the pandemic of 2003 was short and there wasn't that much of a financial investment or public investment after the outbreak had died down. Today, we're suffering from a lack of treatments due to this poorly made choice. Looking forward, efforts should be made to produce treatments on viral outbreaks no matter the spread rate or if the pandemic has died down. We run the risk of not developing any treatments and having a virus or viruses like this come back in the future. So what can we do now as this pandemic is going on? I live in the United States. In a matter of weeks, many places here shut down, from colleges to malls, pretty much any public area. Curfews have been instituted in multiple states, such as New York and New Jersey, and it seems much of the United States, especially the world, is taking this seriously. Well, in America right now, you have people going to the beach in Florida still, and then you have the protests in California, but for the most part, people are taking things seriously. And it doesn't help that we had a president who, in the early days of this pandemic, was trying to downplay it as not being a significant problem. But again, there's so much blame that can go around that I don't want to make this a strenuous point. All that we can do right now is remain indoors and limit our social contact. It's a real shame because much of our summer vacation days will be missed out on. However, not staying indoors ensures that this virus remains active and spreadable. Social distancing, going outside with gloves and a face mask, and washing our hands are of the effective things that we can do to limit the spread of this virus until a vaccine or treatment is found. In my opinion, I don't see relations going back to normal with China due to the amount of damage that was caused by this virus, as well as the nation's incompetencies with handling this pandemic and stopping it from spreading to other countries in its earlier days. And I think the CCP will be facing tons of criticism, and they already are. I see this as a learning experience. Hopefully, if a pandemic is to happen again, world governments will be able to effectively act. And hopefully, countries like China do not attempt to suppress critical information pertinent to outbreaks. Well, that's pretty much it for this video. Please check out the description to see the sources that I used, as well as the Wayback Machine link so you guys can explore, just that time frame. Also, I strongly encourage you guys to check out Professor Yang Zhong Huan's summary of what happened during the SARS outbreak. The article, which is also in the description, it's Learning from SARS, Preparing for the Next Disease Outbreak. Yang Zhong Huan is an associate professor at John C. Whitehead School of Diplomacy and International Relations. Also, he is a professor at Seton Hall University and a senior fellow of global health at the Council on Foreign Relations. It's a great read, and much of this script is centered around his summary. So yeah, I would strongly encourage you guys to just read everything that's there and, just do a little bit more exploring about this whole debacle that happened in 2003 and how the Chinese government pretty much, didn't learn that much from what happened with SARS, and, that's why we're dealing with COVID-19 today. Also, I think we should take into account the ineffective leadership that was displayed by the President of the United States and, leaders of many other countries who didn't really take the pandemic seriously. They thought it was just like a one-and-done thing or just a seasonal sickness. As you can see, it's not, but it's not a one-and-done thing. It's pretty bad, but yeah, I think I've overextended my point. So yeah. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you guys on the next video. Stay safe.